Hello, hello. I just wanted to do a video to talk about a concept that I have that I've been using quite a bit when I chat with people when they're coming to me. And I just thought I'd share it here. Some of you will have heard this before, some of you this will be brand new to. Um, but it's the concept of um, adult Barbie and Ken dolls. I know. So when we are kids, if you watch kids playing, right, you'll actually see them playing with their Barbie and their Ken dolls or their little action figures or whatever it is. And you'll see them actually replaying things that have happened in school, things that have happened in the home, things that are kind of going on in their life. And what they're doing, they're creatively healing themselves because kids are just so intuitive and they haven't been conditioned yet to lose the skills, the natural instincts and skills that they have. So when we look at kids, we can feel quite inspired by them. And yeah, as I said, if you kind of watch them when they're playing by themselves and just like listen in, you'll be able to hear that they're like, reenacting little things. And the reason that they do this is simply because what they're doing is they're completing a process. They have been stressed by something, or they've experienced something, or they've been excited by something, or they've been sad by something, or whatever it is. And to work that out, to work that emotion and that feeling out, they very often then will play it out through like a role play with the dolls or the teddies or whatever it is that they're using. So that's how kids process their emotions to some end. Okay. So then what happens when we grow up and we become adults? We have our toys taken away from us or we drop our toys. And eventually what happens is that we don't have anything to play with anymore. We don't have anything to role play out and kind of solve and bring these emotional experiences to completion. And this is just my own noticings in the world, and I suppose it's what's helped me gain perspective on my interactions with other people as well. So this is just a contemplation that I offer you to consider, and I'd love to know your feedback, and I'd love to hear how you feel about this as well. But when we grow up and we turn into adults and we don't have these toys to play with anymore, I feel what we tend to do is then we project this onto our external world. And if our external world is being mirrored back to us in some way, shape, or form, be that inverted or directly or through um, reading clues and signposts in our environment about what our world is trying to tell us and communicate with us, which is happening all the time, it would make sense then that the people that show up in our lives are actually showing up in our lives to help us to heal those traumas and those wounds and those experiences which weren't brought to completion for one reason or another. And so I kind of feel that we have these people who come into our lives as catalysts for change. The people who annoy you and bug you and trigger you and frustrate you and cause you to feel angry and upset and impatient and all those beautiful moods that we have. If we can flip the narrative on that and begin to see that these people are not doing this thing to us, but they are doing this thing for us, to be able to look inside and ask ourselves, what is this trying to tell me? What is this experience trying to tell me? Because we'll find, like, if you take into consideration that what we put out we get back into the world, we are essentially attracting people into our lives which are helping us to heal our past. I know these might sound like big concepts, um, but this is something that I work with and I see quite often, that we are attracting the people that we're attracting into our life. We're literally attracting them in to be catalysts for change, to trigger us back into alignment, to trigger us back into um, doing the work. Because really, if we went around all tickety boo and there was nothing going on in our lives and everything was absolutely amazing, you wouldn't be bothered doing any shadow work. You wouldn't be bothered doing any personal work, any deep diving into who you are, why you're here, and all the rest of it. why would you? Like, if things are glorious and amazing, why would you bother doing the deep dive? So if we're having these experiences, what you need to ask yourself is, what is the reason for me having these experiences? And it's not because you're a bad human, and it's not because you're a bad person. It's simply because these experiences are offering you the opportunity to get back into alignment. Because when you're experiencing pain and negative emotions or perceived negative emotions, quite often it's will feel like this thing is happening to us rather than for us. So we want to move from being disempowered into feeling empowered. And the quickest and easiest way of doing that is to change your mindset. So rather than this person is constantly annoying me and pissing me off, you can see it like, okay, what is this trying to tell me? And like, we haven't been taught how to read our experiences. So when this person is triggering us and annoying us, we can say, ooh, do you know, what is it really about this experience that's bothering me? Is it that this person has crossed a boundary too many times? And is it that we don't, and like, what is that telling you? It's telling you that you don't have boundaries. It's not saying that the other person has crossed your boundaries, it's that you don't have boundaries. Because how can other people respect your boundaries if you don't have them there in the first place? And if you don't know where your boundaries are, how can anybody else know where your boundaries are? So that's kind of one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is like, you know, who does this person remind me of? Like, this person that keeps upsetting me, annoying me, frustrating me, who do they remind me of? Do they remind me of an old friend you used to have? Do they remind you of one of your parents, your brother, your sibling, your sister, your cousin, your aunt, your uncle? Who do they remind you of? Because guarantee you that person's going to remind you of somebody. And we see this quite a lot in dreams. When we're dreaming about somebody from years ago, quite often that person is simply a symbol of somebody that is in your world at the moment. So when we dream about somebody else from years ago, it's the energy of that person that you're dreaming about, which actually probably reminds you of somebody in your current world. So that's another way of looking at it. So you can kind of be like, oh, well, who does this remind me of? And what was the story there? Like, why did that bother me so much? And then we can look at it another way and be like, okay, well, what does this event remind me of? You know, when in my life have I also experienced something similar to this before? And then you go back to that and you think, well, what did that remind me of? And what did that, you know, what kind of experience did that remind me of before? And you can go back again. And eventually what happens is you get to figure out like what's causing all this echo of experiences in your current life. It's just an echo of your past. When you bring your awareness into what it is that's calling for attention, it just disappears. It literally would just vanish and disappear. And the analogy I often give people is it's like a kid who is pulling on your trouser leg. If there's a kid and they're pulling on your trouser leg and they're looking for attention and you're not giving them attention, the more you ignore that child that's pulling on your trouser leg looking for attention, the more louder it's going to get, until the child is going to be like screaming at you for attention. And then that's when we typically go, okay, you're screaming for attention, I'm going to pay attention now. I'm not saying that that's typical parenting. That's a whole other video. But you get the gist of what I'm saying. So when we look at that pattern, we can then look at that in our normal everyday life and say, okay, well, what is it that's repeating over and over and over in my life that I have been ignoring, which has become unbearably uncomfortable right now, and which is something that is calling for me to address. And what's looking to be addressed is the same thing that was there pulling on your trouser leg in silence previously. And all that it's looking for is attention. And all it's looking for is to be seen, heard, understood, and released. That's it. No big drama. So this is just the reason I was kind of saying all this is because what are we doing with adult Barbie dolls? Our adult Barbie and Ken dolls. The reason I was saying that was because as kids, we're playing with our Barbies and our Kens and our teddies and our action figures, and we're role playing out to finish and complete something that upset us or something that was going on in our life so that we could make sense of it. And as I said, then what's happening is when we're adults, we're actually attracting people into our lives to play the role of those action figures and those teddies and those Barbie and Ken dolls. they become, the people in our world become those figures who allow us to play out the dramas of our past, the emotions of our past. And simply, it's just a way of us to complete the story and us to give it a voice, and for us to give it a acknowledgement, consciousness, and then let it go. So that's all I had to share. I hope this has been interesting, and I would love to know your comments. What is it that you have going on in your life that seems to be repetitive over and over and over and over again? Is it relationships? Is it a health issue? Is it something to do with your career, life at home? What is it that's repeating over and over again? And can you spot in that repetitious behavior, that repetitious interaction, that repetitious experience, can you spot the common theme? And what does it remind you of? Who does it remind you of? Have you ever had experiences like that before? What does that remind you of? Yeah, I'd absolutely love to know, does this resonate with you? So drop some comments below. If you want to share this video, feel free to share it with anybody that you feel it might be really beneficial for, somebody who's going through something that's like a repetitive cycle over and over again, and it might help them to actually make sense of it. So yeah, drop me a comment below. Let me know. I'd love to hear your feedback. Talk to you soon. Bye.